This happened back in 2010. I was working in a hotel in a suburban area. It was a nice place. When I first started there, I was both a part-time front desk clerk and a part-time night auditor, for those of you who are not familiar with hospitality. I closed the day out on the computers on the overnight shift. I had just been promoted to a day job and had a week left at the front desk before I was switching to my Monday through Friday gig. And it was just like any other night. At about 3 a.m., I received a phone call. The guy sounded my age, about mid-20s, and attempted to strike up a conversation with me. I have to give my name when answering the phone, so he gets my name, and of course, he starts asking me personal questions. Do you have a boyfriend? Would you want to go out for a drink, etc.? Which were harmless, but nevertheless, I tell him that I'm hanging up as I had a job to get done. He wouldn't give me his name. Instead, he said, "Why don't you call me John?" I hang up and finish my shift. The next night, at about 3:30 a.m., I receive another phone call from John. He started off with asking me out for a drink again, to which I declined and hung up the phone. He called back about 5 times that night, each time getting more lewd in his comments and just tried to keep me talking. He ended his last call with the phrase, "I see you like singing karaoke. I love doing that. Let's go out sometime." Shit, I think to myself. He found me on Twitter. I had just gone out a few nights prior with my friends and posted about it. I asked him how he got my full name and he wouldn't tell me. I hung up again and he was done for that night. I deleted my Twitter and Foursquare pages, and when my boss came in at 7 a.m., I told him what had been going on. We told my GM, and my security guard put it into his report. I only worked 2 overnights a week, luckily, but when I came back the next week, so did he. The phone calls started at around 3 a.m. and lasted for about an hour or so, but this time was a little different. John was angry that I had deleted my accounts so he couldn't keep an eye on me, and to make sure I wasn't cheating on him. I told him to fuck off, and that I'm not answering the phone anymore. My security guard will be taking all my calls going forward. The phone was quiet for about 10 seconds, and then he screamed, "You're gonna be with me whether you like it or not. I'm coming for you," and he hung up the phone. And of course, I freaked out and called the police. Luckily, I had my security guard there, so I wasn't completely alone. But it must have been a slow night, because it took the cops only a few minutes to get there. I called my night supervisor, who left at 11 p.m., and he managed to calm me down. One cop was nice enough to stay until my shift was done. And with that, I told my boss that even though I had a week left of the overnights, I couldn't and wouldn't do it. Thankfully, they understood, and I moved to my daytime hours, as well as I sent an email out to everyone, telling them that anyone who called for me was sent directly to the GM. Thankfully, everything stopped after that, minus a few calls the security guy got for about a week. He told the guy that I had quit because of him, and the calls stopped. It still creeps me out though. We think he may be a former guest at the hotel, but I never found out who he was. I'm a 21-year-old senior in college, living with 3 other girls in an old 1-story house. We're located at about a 15-minute walk from the main campus, and the majority of our neighbors are college students. That being said, this town is notorious for being a little sketchy, I guess you could say. Millie is home to one of the first insane asylums built in America. After the majority of it being closed down and abandoned for years, the final building was shut down about a month ago, and the remaining patients were released. Now, I doubt this directly is correlated with my creepy experience, but I'm not the only one who has had interesting encounters with strangers since the release this month. 2 nights ago, after getting off work at around 11:30, I came home to my roommates, getting ready to go out for a night. I realized how stupid it was, but we often had an open door policy, free for anyone to come over and visit as they please. We would lock the door at night, but the one time we forgot really came back to bite me in the ass. Around midnight, I was hopping in the shower as my roommates were heading out the door. We said our goodbyes, and and I told them that I would be meeting up with them later. I had just stepped out of the shower when I heard what sounded like the front door slamming shut. I automatically assumed one of the girls had forgotten something, so I called out their names, and no response. I then heard footsteps in the hallway, so I call out again, no response. Fear and dread came over me, and I immediately grabbed my clothes and ran into the bedroom. I threw my clothes on and leaned my ear to the door and waited in silence to hear if someone was in the house. I hear nothing. I decided that it must have been one of my roommates grabbing something and leaving again, so I head into the living room to get my phone. I had 6 missed calls and it's still ringing. My roommate Carrie was on the other end. I answered and immediately could hear the panic in her voice. "Lay, are you in the house?" Me. "Yeah, why, Carrie?" "You need to get out. Sam drove by and said she saw a man walking through the front door. He called the police, but you need to leave." I just about shit my pants. Nothing was going through my head besides pure adrenaline and fear. I wasn't sure of the man's intentions, but I wasn't going to wait to find out. While remaining on the phone with my roommate, I bolted out the front door and hid behind my car. I watched the house from afar, waiting anxiously to see any movement. My thought process was not at its finest at this point, and I realized I probably could have made smarter decisions. As my friends approached in a truck, I sprinted out from behind my car and jumped into the back of their bed. Just as I did that, a dark figure scurried off into the woods in the opposite direction. I can only assume he was inching closer to me as I was waiting for my friends to arrive. I screamed bloody murder and we floored it out of there. I refused to go back into the house until the police arrived and it had been triple checked. There were no signs of anything being touched or stolen, which makes me wonder what the man's intentions were. You can guarantee that I've locked my door every night since that. So this was when I was much younger in college. I'm sure you could find this as it was in the news if you tried hunting for it. I was dating a girl that went to school in Providence, Rhode Island. It was summer and everyone was back home. My girlfriend's best friend had an internship back in Providence, and this girl had a 4-bedroom, multi-family home to herself. The other 3 roommates were paying for their rooms, but chose to stay home. I guess they could only get this place if they started paying rent 2 to 3 months prior to the school year starting, but whatever. One weekend, my girlfriend asked me to go to Providence with her to spend time with her friend. She is lonely and has nothing to do on the weekends. We're only like an hour from Providence, so it sounds like a plan. We head down and we chill for the night, drink and do some cocaine. It's about 2 a.m. and we decided to go for a walk and get some cigs, nothing special. We walked by a guy on our way home from the gas station who just started staring at us. It was kind of creepy, but no big deal. As it's 2 a.m. in Providence, and her house wasn't located in the best of areas. We eventually all pass out, and me and my girlfriend head home the next day. The end of the week comes, and my girlfriend asks if I want to go to Providence again, but I can't, as I have to work all weekend. So I decline. She heads down there, and her friend's boyfriend is coming to stay over, pretty much the repeat of the weekend before. They all drink, but ended up going out and partying a little bit. They're walking back after a night of drinking when they enter the mudroom around 2 a.m. They close the mudroom door behind them, which they left unlocked. And there's a dude, really raggedy looking in there, waiting for them. He says out loud to them, "Get in the fucking house." They all turn around and he has a gun. My girlfriend's friend had already unlocked the door to the house and it's partially opened. Everyone is frozen in place and the guy repeats himself again, "Get in the fucking house." The boyfriend then steps forward with his hands up just a little bit as to not seem confrontational and says, "Hey man, calm down, it's all good." I don't know how the fuck this dude was brave enough to do all that. As he says that, the dude shoots him. My girlfriend and her friend ran into the house and hid under the bed. They can't hear this, but the assailant took off and didn't follow them back in. They don't know this though and are terrified. hiding under the bed while the boyfriend is screaming for help. They think the psycho has came into the house and is looking for him. My girlfriend told me that they were both silently crying under the bed while the boyfriend screamed for help. And this is the worst part, yelling out, "Help me, I'm dying." The neighbors heard the gunshots and screaming and called the police. They ended up catching the dude. He had been watching the girl for weeks. It was the guy we had seen watching us the week prior. The worst part was, the girl's boyfriend ended up dying. I live in a very rural, mountainous area of California, and this time I was working as a cook in a restaurant/bar. I was 24, and I'm not in the best place financially at the time, so I had been borrowing my uncle's car to drive to and from work. I work from 5 p.m. to 11. I know everyone in the area well, and don't have a single enemy. I get along with everyone. One night, I had gotten done closing up the kitchen, and decided to have a beer before going home. The bartender was talking to a fellow community member and was trying to get him to go home. He was too drunk for his own good, and there were some out-of-towners that weren't too fond of the locals' demeanor, and it seemed as it was getting intense between them. I just saw it, as a local that I knew, as being annoyingly drunk, but perfectly harmless. I had my beer and went out and got in my car. I could see inside of the bar and spotted the drunk local, completely smashed. I felt bad for not offering him a ride home, but I was tired from work and told myself he'll be okay. I drive away, mind you. There's no street lamps, no buildings, and it's in the middle of nowhere. It's pitch black and very quiet. I realized about a mile from the bar that I should turn around and offer the local a ride home. He didn't live far, and it wouldn't be far out of my way to do so. I turn around at a muddy turnout and go back. I get in the bar, and I was basically short with the local, and told him that I would pick him up in the morning and he'd get his truck later, sober, and that I'll give him a ride home tonight. I was 24 at the time, and a small-built female. He was a smaller-built 35-year-old male. I knew this guy had hit on me in the past, but I assumed he was just a 35-year-old weirdo who was lonely. I always shrugged off his advances. Anyway, with a couple of minutes of reasoning, he finally hopped in the car and I took off, driving towards his home, about 5 miles away on a winding mountainous road. I didn't notice anything really at first. He seemed drunk, quiet, and mumbly, but not too long into the drive, he starts saying thank you and how nice I am to help out. I say the usual, of course, no problem. I couldn't let him be there, knowing full well he wasn't able to drive. This was where I started to get creeped out. I make a turn on the road that he lives on. It's a long road, with not many houses. All the driveways are long, about a mile or two, so you don't see any houses. He gets really quiet, and it's dark in the car. I can't see him really well, and I notice him looking at me. I could see the reflection of his eyes from the dim lights on the radio. His eyes gleaming, kind of green from the lights on the radio knobs. He was just looking at me. I, without returning his gaze, said, "What's up? Why are you looking at me like that?" He says to me, "You're so pretty. I never get this chance to be alone with you." I shrugged it off, trying to play it cool, although I started regretting my decision. All of a sudden, he reaches over to me while I'm driving and tries to put his hand, I'm assuming on my breast, but instead, his hand lands on my shoulder/neck area. I start yelling at him to stop. I slam on my brakes in the middle of the road. No one's behind me, and there's no one for miles. I scream to him, "Get out of the car, now!" I repeated over and over. At this point, I had my hands off the wheel and was trying to push him out of the car. I had leaned over and opened the door. I had never in my life realized my own strength. My own weak strength. This 30-something-year-old male was not budging against me. I notice him laughing, a really sloppy laugh. He says, "You and I both know that no one is around." I said to him, "We just left the bar. At least 5 people know where I'm going. Please stop. Here's a flashlight. Walk home. I'm done with you tonight." He is quiet for a minute before saying, "I don't feel like walking much." The way he said it scared the living shit out of me. I started screaming, not like a horse scream, but like an ear-piercing scream. I knew the scream was strong enough and loud enough. I had even hurt my own ears, just hoping that someone had their windows open somewhere off in the woods, but nothing happened. We struggled for what I felt like minutes as he kept trying to come at me. The entire time, he was kind of laughing. He was drunk, so that was probably my only advantage. He was sloppy and trying to attack me for whatever reason. I pushed on him like I had never pushed on anything in my life. I pushed so hard that I felt my arms burning with pain. When he finally gets out of the car, I slam on the gas, not even bothering with the door. Remember, I was headed down a long-ass road in the middle of nowhere. It's a dead-end road after about 20 miles, so I keep driving down the road. I know full well that I need to stop and turn around, but this road is like 1.5 lanes wide, and there's hardly any turnouts. When I finally do, I turn around fast and in someone's dirt driveway, afraid of my car being still for even a second. I take off driving, knowing he'll be up ahead at any second. I never see him again. He was a local I had known for years, and I saw frequently. I don't know if he took off to another area from embarrassment or what, but I never saw him again. I arrived home, shaking, red and scratched and out of breath. My boyfriend and our friend were home playing Jenga, and I told them immediately, and they knew who it was, and they went out and tried to find him, but they never saw him again, and it's been almost a year. To start off, I'm a girl who barely reaches 5'1", and at the time of the story, I was 16. When I turned 15, I picked up a job at a local kennel just to make a little extra cash. I did so well at my job that a lot of people that came in asked if I could watch their dogs at home while they were out of town or work. $18 for every half hour. Hell yes, I'll watch your dog. I had one client that was going through a divorce and had to travel out of state a couple of weeks to deal with that situation. On top of that, he was completely renovating his house. I watched his dogs every weekday and whenever he had to travel. Almost every single time I came into his house, there were construction workers there. I should also mention that he had 2 incredibly adorable Afghan hound puppies that were probably 3 months old. One day, I get a call from him saying that he is going to be gone for a week and he needed me to let his dogs out 3 times a day and stay the night at his house. I've done overnights with a couple other clients before, but something about him asking me to sleep at his house made me feel super uncomfortable. He offered $100 per night, so of course my greedy ass accepted it. I never felt comfortable in his house before, but during the 3rd visit that day, I decided to snoop around a little bit. The house has 3 stories and a basement, and I had only ever been in one room in his entire house. I moved up to the 2nd floor and found a room that had the walls lined with metal cabinets. I opened one of the doors and see an absolute shitload of guns and ammo. I decided that this visit was over and noped it the fuck out of there. My second overnight is when shit got weird. At this point, it felt fairly routine. I just hang out with the dogs until 5 a.m. and go back home to sleep in my own bed. I lock myself in the guest room, which is on the 1st floor, and watch TV with the dogs while I eat some of my clients' food. I should mention that during all this, his renovations he added had a new security system with motion detectors on the 1st and 2nd floor. Around midnight, I decided to set one of the motion detectors while I'm outside with the dogs from their late night potty break. My client's house is surrounded with woods, so I usually keep the dogs on a leash and just walk them around the house. Once I make it into the front of the house, I hear the alarm blaring inside. My first thought was, I guess the alarm system isn't finished yet. That thought was quickly cut short when I noticed a light flick on upstairs. My heart completely sank when I saw someone peek out the window at me. Before I had the chance to get a good look at them, the silhouette vanished. In hindsight, I realized that based on the layout of the house, he was in the gun room. I scooped up both puppies with one arm while I'm fumbling with my car keys trying to unlock the door. I set them in the passenger seat before manually locking all the doors. As soon as my car starts, I blast out of my client's driveway. I get to the end of the neighborhood and come to a complete stop before dialing 911. I couldn't remember my client's exact address, so I just asked them to meet me at a nearby church so I can show them the house. I stayed at the end of the road while in my car. They searched the house, and sadly, they didn't find anyone, and there was no sign of forced entry. I kept the dogs at my house for the rest of the week. After that day, I never walked those dogs again. My client even invited me to do private training lessons with his dogs at his house. It broke my heart to decline. The scariest part for me is the fact that I don't know how long they were in there with me. I went in and out of that house over 8 times and didn't notice anything.